we can get into this with somebody who knows much more than any of us does.
Yes, exactly.
Hi, Ron. Hi, Ron.
Um,
So we were just talking about, okay, so how is Black Swan Network different than, say, 17,000 other groups that are kind of in this Elephant Six world? And so he was getting into it and whatever, but you're here. I mean, I like it a lot. I mean, I'll just say that. I mean, I think it reminds me of other things that I was more familiar with, but makes me wonder why I wasn't more familiar with it.
well, I think it was definitely more of the avant-garde side of the guys, mainly Will's music concrete excursions and dream sequences. They asked for people to send in dreams and all that stuff early on. And it's weird. I mean, the Black Swan Network was always kind of like this mysterious side project, they called it, but it wasn't really a side project. It was just like these extra things that they had, I guess. I mean, it goes back to what is it, the B side of Opera House single, right?
Yeah, the bicycle radar tracks. Yes, yeah, where you were supposed to be able to play both of the singles simultaneously.
Right. And I talked to Will about that and stuff like that. And yes, I mean, in theory, I don't think they ever actually like matched it up and said, okay, this works.
Yeah.
I think it was, it works in theory, and then let's, let it be up to the listener to decide. The first time I remember hearing about the Black Swan Network was that Opera House. That's like 96-ish, something like that.
That's the first ever reason that I had two turntables in my house was that single. Because I remember getting it as a gift and being like, okay, now I have to go get another record player. Like Ron's saying, like it just works different ways every time you do it. And I think that's the one thing I love about the concept of it is that you get to be a part of the experience. It's kind of like whenever you put the needle down on one or whatever, it's a very tangible thing. You are a part of when everything happens. So I think that that is such a unique way of presenting music on record.
It's almost like, they gave you the tools, and it's like, okay, you're a member of the Black Swan Network as well. You could play along at home, type thing. And it's like, yeah, with especially with vinyl, you're matching it up, unless you're like really matching beats, like on a DJ setup, it's never gonna land at the same exact spot.
I'm just thinking about how, like, earlier, and this is probably of interest of maybe two or three people who are almost exclusively on this call, but around the time this came out, I owned actually five turntables. Most of them were complete garbage, but I was doing this sort of avant-garde, sort of experimental DJ project where I was playing multiple different records and playing with delay and echo and looping and all sorts of stuff live. It's an art project where, I called myself a DJ, but it was not dance music at all. I mean, so I'm just kind of curious. This was totally up my alley because I would just randomly put, hey, I'm going to put these three different records on at the same time and see what happens. And yet here's something that existed out there that was intentional and yet for whatever reason wasn't on my radar. So I'm very curious to hear more.
Well, I mean, that goes back to, early 4-track experiments and stuff like that. that, you know, Will and those guys were doing, and we all were doing, I guess, around the same time, mid 90s. You know, you can never really match up tracks, and you could take different things from different sessions and kind of overlay it, and then it makes this new thing. And it's like, oh wow, that actually works, you know, and then let's just go with that. So I think that happened a lot, you know, in the early days, at least for me, doing tape experiments, tape loop experiments, leaving it up to chance and seeing, you know, and then it creates a new piece of art.
I think the cool thing about that is, you know, and I was just thinking about this when I was listening to kind of the side that you, and we'll have to explain to people your role in this, Ron, and your role in general. I know a lot of people who've maybe seen the Elephant Six movie know of you, but we should give a little background on who you are and how you are kind of part of this release, especially because that's what we're talking about. But the one thing that when I was listening to side two or whatever, which is kind of the pieces that we have not heard before. The sequencing reminds me of, like, you know how you have an old 8mm camera, and whatever you push the go on, that's when the camera starts and that's when it stops. So you have those original jump cuts that you could never imagine while you're doing it, because whatever, you forgot what you filmed before. And I love that mentality of things just kind of like stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And I feel like the sequencing on the second half kind of has that feel. And it's really, really, I love it. Some of these kind of sound like Will demos that are just kind of like, oh, we didn't know when to stop and when to start, when to stop. And I just love the sequence of it. It was a really exciting listen. So I'm very excited for people to hear this stuff. The work that you did on it, and I don't know exactly what, you know, mixing wise or whatever you had to do, but it's really cool.
So, okay, so yeah, I thank you. I'm so glad you like it. Okay, so let's see. Background. I go way back with the guys. I became kind of like the Chicago hub of Elephant Six pretty early on when bands like Elf Power, Fable Factory, and any band that came through Chicago that needed a place to stay would stay at my place. This is going back really early days of all those bands coming through Chicago. And that's how I met Patrick, actually. He slept on my floor way, way, way back. The Poison Control Center, I thought they were so weird because they actually got up and went jogging in the morning. So yeah, so I became friends with the guys really early on just because basically they needed a place to stay. I'm a big record collector, music fanatic, and we had so many mutual overlapping tastes. We would turn each other on to different music. I would make them CDs at the time, mixtapes, and then they would continue the rest of the tour with my CDs as the soundtrack to their tours and stuff like that. And then they'd get to the end, and then I'd get a call or an email from one of the guys, usually Will. Okay, what is this song? What is this song? Where did you find this? So, you know, in my little way, I was not trying to just, and not intentionally, just trying to influence my friends, you know, turn them on to weird music that I found in my collecting.
That's what friends do.
Exactly. That's what friends are for.
Yes.
But yeah, so me and Will became really close really early on, and it just blossomed into this friendship that lasted forever and will last forever. At some point in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I went on one of my many trips down to Athens. I was spending time with Will and realized that he had these shoe boxes full of CDRs. Some of them were labeled, some of them were not labeled, some of them were stuck together. They were in all different kinds of disarray, scratched. Will, I mean, I wouldn't say Will was a hoarder, but he was definitely a hoarder of music and
Yeah.
I knew at the time, I'm like, this stuff is going to either disappear, never be heard, and I better do something about it because I'm a collector and an archivist of live recordings forever. I was a live taper for a long time. And that was another connection I had with the Elephant Six guys in general. I would record all the shows. So when they came to Chicago, I would tape the shows. So being this archivist, when I saw all these CDRs at Will's house, I'm like, I have to do something. And so I digitized all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first time. And then I did it another time after that because I realized what I had and what just I knew that the stuff would either be lost.
Well, what was the time frame of you doing this?
So this is like 2009, or no, sorry. This is early 2000s, 2004, maybe 5.
So the stuff that you digitized, what did a lot of that end up being used in Signal Morning
Okay.
and Mosaics?
Okay, so it was, yeah. So Will's thing is this, it's hard to explain, but there's a conceptual continuity thing going on where pieces from all different time periods of Will's artistic career would be used, repurposed, remixed, reimagined over the years. So stuff that's on my mosaics, it overlaps with stuff from Signal Morning. It overlaps with stuff from the first circulatory. It goes way back to Always Red Society. There's 4-track snippets that will pop up on releases that goes way back. So it's kind of like you take this big stew of various time periods and either you create something new out of it or you take a little snippet here and a snippet there and you make something new. And I think that was true for Will's entire musical career. Getting to work with Will a bunch over the years, seeing that he takes from this giant pool of resources, whether it's brand new stuff with something from 10 years ago, and then it's something new that nobody's ever heard. It was just mind blowing. The scope of it, the amount of media that he had, recordings that he had made, it's staggering. I mean, I've made a lot of recordings in my life. I've made a lot of music in my life, but nothing even comes close to the amount of output that Will has had. And it's interesting, like even stuff that from maybe his high school era, and I put it up against stuff that he did, post Signal Morning or even post Mosaics, and it's really hard to even tell what time frame it's from.
Aqua waters and a pear-shaped thought. We had yellow numbers on a watercolor coat, and the landscape cranes stretch all around. Aqua waters and a pear-shaped thought. We had yellow numbers on a watercolor coat, and the landscape.
I think that's cool, and that makes the stuff timeless so much.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So there was a couple periods that post dusk, there's a bunch of stuff. Then post black foliage, there's a bunch of stuff. And then right pre-circulatory system self-titled, there's a bunch of stuff. So there's like periods where he was very fruitful, putting out tons of stuff, really concentrating on recording, and then he would like get sidetracked, concentrate on drawing, illustrating, painting, more visual media. But he would always go back to these little to these little excursions of music when he just, and it's crazy, like the stuff that was like earmarked for Signal Morning. There's like so much of it. Stuff that, in the pre-self-titled circulatory system, there's just so much amazing stuff. Stuff that has not been used. So me and Will, let's see, maybe it was like 2014, 15. I would have Will come to Chicago, just kind of get out of Athens, kind of. His health wasn't the best at this time. I was just trying to, brought him up to my house for kind of like a little vacation. of for life, you know. And me and him started working on a project called Amoeba Kite, which was utilizing old stuff, recording new stuff on top of it. So during that era, me and him really started going through my archives, and I'd ask him, okay, what is this? You know, because so much of it was unlabeled. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks. The last count I had something like 890 that were just earmarked as Olivia stuff,
My mind is blown.
something like 1100 tracks that are circulatory. And that's just because that's what the CD was titled. Figuring out what these things were is a whole nother project that me and Will kind of started.
Oh my God.
You know, I would sit him down at my dining room table and I'd play him something. I'd be like, what is this? And he would try and rack his brain to figure out, okay, that's from demos that I sent to Heather for the first circulatory system record. Or this is a Derek's remix version of Signal Morning. In going through all these tracks just to get them labeled so I could kind of put a shape to this archive. And I got about, I don't know, 60% of it labeled. And if not labeled song wise, but at least each CDR, what era it's from. So but yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of material and it's, I would say 75 to 80% of it has never even been heard by anybody outside of the band, or even some of the stuff even the band had, you know, the various band members have never heard.
You know, I tell you what, that makes me very happy. Even if I never end up hearing these things, knowing that just such a vast library of Will exists in the world is yeah, that makes me happy.
Yeah, and you know, I knew, I mean, obviously Will is not just my best friend in the world, but one of my favorite artists, both visual, music, just one of the great artists of our time. You know, I knew this stuff had to be archived. I knew it would be important. I know it's important. It's just this huge, just well of amazing creativity that's I've never seen from any other artist that I've worked with.
I think, I mean, of course, Rudy's going to be like, okay, these three guys. You could just say the two Olivia records. I would put him up there in that regard. But all of this other stuff that you know, I think that's the beautiful thing about this release, that the Black Swan 7-inch, which I just pulled out of my Happy Birthday to Me box and listened to this week, just to compare notes a little bit. It's so cool it's kind of such a rare thing anyway, and I'm so lucky that I have one of those boxes. But to have this opportunity to add to that story, I think is so unique, and that this story continues, you know, just because, you know, and there's even a song on this new release that talks about kind of our bodies just kind of being a skeleton. It just makes me, it makes me emotional,
Yeah.
even thinking about just the release with Andrew this past year, this release, that there's an Olivia record on the horizon. There's so much life left in this, in Will and Bill and this group of people that haven't even been dropped into the world. And I think it's so special, and it's so cool that you and Kelly and I think Jason and Derek also helped with this, and then Mike from Happy Birthday to Me is putting it out, that there is this group of people who is continuing to tell this story. So I just, as a fan, I really appreciate it, you know.
Yeah, so getting back to how I did this. So you know, I immersed myself in the 7-inch, of course, and tried to find stuff in the archive that seemed to make sense of that era. And the only way I could do that, it was by recording quality and sounds. So I literally went through so many different iterations of what this extended version of the 7-inch could be. Just songs, transition pieces, And finally, between me and Kelly, we went back and forth on songs that we loved, songs that nobody's ever heard, things like The Shell, like you mentioned, Patrick. And, Black Swan kind of over time went from this very experimental thing from those early 7-inch B-sides to the late music, which is another release, to the Colored Squares release, which was a tour only album. That stuff is very much experimental, tape experiments, dream experiments. But then once the 7-inch came out, it kind of took kind of a slight detour and was very much like maybe Will home demos that have been expanded upon. Like maybe there was this like a little acoustic segment, but then we took that as the base and they started adding different elements on top of it. And then there's on the 7-inch, there's also a John piece that's a more of a, there's more like drone stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in that 7-inch. There was kind of an excursion from not just the hardcore experimental, but even more song based.
Yeah, it was a bit more melodic than your typical
Yeah.
Black Swan Network release.
Right, but still keeping the wild, woolly, experimental music concrete weirdness on top of it. So so trying to find those pieces in this vast archive of stuff was like, going into the great unknown of I've got to find, something that with Will not being here to kind of like give his stamp of approval. I really had to put my mind in his headspace. What would Will want to continue whatever the 7-inch was at that time. So I found these pieces, songs that I just thought were just too good to just like do just little demos. And I took transition pieces from a thing that Will had talked about doing a thing called Toy Box over the years. A lot of experimental stuff, little snippets of sounds and just bird sounds. There's slowed down bells and chimes, and it's just this huge, almost like a sound effects library of stuff. And it's called Toy Box. And I always loved it. There's just something about the sound quality. And when you listen to the new Black Swan Network B-side, I use those as the transition pieces just because it really.
Oh, you did.
So the Toy Box stuff, which has really never been heard, it's never been released, and me and Kelly are discussing a future release of Toy Box stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the works, and I'm not totally at liberty to talk about all the different projects that we're doing.
We sort of understand.
Yeah,
we're mad at you, but we'll allow it.
But yeah, Kelly will have to announce all these things. But Toy Box is one of the things that we've discussed, and I think so I use little snippets of that, and finding pieces of that transition the songs in my mind how Will would want it. I think I really tried to capture the essence of that.
Aqua waters and a pear-shaped thought. We had yellow numbers on a watercolor coat. And the landscape grains stretch all around. Aqua waters and a pear-shaped thought. We had yellow numbers on a watercolor coat. And the landscape grains stretch all around.
Well, I don't. So yeah, there's. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 songs. Then this is the B side to the 12-inch of. Oh, the release we're talking about, I guess, is the Black Swan Network. This is the B side to the Happy Happy Birthday to Me 7-inch that came in the box side. So right off the bat, this is kind of niche, weird, a release that not even a lot of people even knew about. because it was only released in the box set. With this really cool felt cover. There's some black ones with white print, white ones with black print, and then I think there was a red one.
And I think there's only 500 copies of the 7-inch, and I don't know how many boxes were made.
I am my mind is just going really weird places because I remember seeing this 7-inch. I lived in Austin, Texas for a while around this era. I know I've seen that 7-inch in person before. So it's just weird. It's like oh, hey, dummy. It's like the universe was like knocking on my head. But I do want to take it back to like earlier. Patrick had sort of talked about jump cuts in terms of the sound editing and all of that. And there was also talk of how in many ways these almost sound like demos of songs. Like to me, one thing I did notice in the jump cuts is I forget, it's one of the songs towards the end where even after the jump cuts, I mean, it feels like it's still the same song, but just played in a completely different way. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to verbalize here, but it felt like maybe there was, different incarnations of the same song being blended together. And so it's not just random stuff that kind of fits together, being jump cutted together, but there is some sort of other thing. And I'm also thinking about, I mean, I was only had one conversation with Will, and it was pretty profound, I think. But but it's opening. Everything you're saying is just expanding my vision of who this person was and what a fascinating person they were. And it's also just making me think a lot of things about this particular release too, as well, and myself and music and everything. So, I don't know. I guess it's not really a comment. It's just or a question. It's a series of comments.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like you look at this output of Will going from the poppy stuff with Olivia, and then the more experimental, and yes, the jump cut stuff and the stuttering and all, all this. It Will was pouring out himself into this art. I mean, if you've ever had a conversation with Will, even a conversation with Will was like a little art piece. Every time I talked to Will, it was just like, because his mind worked so quickly. He was thinking about something, but before he could even finish that sentence, he had something else bubbling up, a little small reference to this, to that, and it was like jump cuts, and if you could speak the language of Will, it was just a magical thing, and I think that's how he really kept his close friends, the people that could really understand those jump cuts and that train of thought overlapping. It's a lot like his art, taking stuff from previous conversations and putting it with new conversations. And I mean, that's what art, really truly amazing collage artists do, is, you take this, you make something new out of it. And then this is a wholly new piece of art.
What did you care? One all day long in the snow, undefined, and two just goes to show tonight that three will never fail. You claim knowledge, but I'd like to suggest I'm
one of my favorite moments, and of course I got to meet him many times and speak with him and of course I think he realized very quickly that I was such a fan that, he was so kind. Both him and Will and Bill, of course, were so kind to me as just a fanboy. But, the first time I got to really speak to him was when Circulatory System came to Ames, Iowa and played. And of course everybody stayed at my house or whatever. And I was telling him about, the first Circulatory System record, how I was listening to it. I was waiting. I was a janitor of like this department store that did like CDs and videos and stuff like that. It's called Hastings. It's kind of like a Borders, but they had rental stuff, and I was the janitor. And I pretty much was the janitor, so I could buy used CDs there, right? But the morning of 9/11, was shortly after the first Circulatory record had come out, and I was just listening to that record obsessively, of course, because it was like a member of my favorite band putting out new music. And that whole record has lyrics that could tie into, same thing with whatever, Dark Side of the Moon, Wizard of Oz. It's like whatever you want to connect the things. And the We Will Live Forever, and it's true, we will live for. So the second the CD gets done, I'm like, why is nobody showing up to open the door, right? And I have just NPR playing when my CD play is done in my car, and like whatever, the first building had been hit, the Pentagon had just been hit, and I was just like, and I didn't realize it at the time, right? I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? And then somebody finally shows up to open the store, and you watch the second tower fall. And then you start to think about the next time I turned that record on, I was like, oh my God, like this record is like, it's like connecting this whole experience or whatever. And of course I bringing that up to somebody that like this tragedy or this thing, it was like this soundtracked the moment that this was happening, and it was like kind of like sent from the other stratosphere. And like I think that I don't know, but he wasn't surprised by my connection of it all. You know what I mean? The music is so powerful to me that it was kind of there. And I've recently talked to other people about it who I've just met, who met through even this podcast, that talking about how the first Circulatory records were so important during that time, and Will's music is so important. We just since his passing, it's been so. That's the one nice thing, is to be able to talk to other people about what it meant to them, and every single person I talk to has a similar story like that of what this music connects in their world. So powerful.
The vastness, the big picture of life in those lyrics is it's profound. It's amazing. And I was not ready for it. I mean, that record, for me, I mean, everyone loves Dusk, like Foliage. For me, the greatest thing that came out of the whole Elephant Six universe for me was that first Circulatory System record. It's
it's like my number two.
Yeah. It's most people's number two or three. It's my it's my number one, and there's just it'll always be. It's just it's a masterpiece in every sense of the word.
It really is.
Lyrically, musically, the mix of it, everything about it. And this is like I said, this release, this Black Swan Network, was just really scratching the surface of the amount of amazing songs that Will wrote.
Yeah, you've only mentioned about like 13 new projects that I had no idea existed during the course of this interview.
And I mean, also, I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about the status of The Same Place, but that is moving along.
We're given intermittent, somewhat updates. They don't tell us too much, but they tell us enough to keep us slavering with saliva.
I'll just confirm that it is moving along. Jason is doing an amazing job. Derek I mean, you have the best minds working on this stuff that know this stuff inside out. So it's like it's gonna blow everyone's minds. That's all I have to say.
I could not be. I mean, I've been this excited about the follow up to Black Foliage since '99. That is how long I've been waiting for the follow up.
Yeah, and it's at the stage now where it's like, oh shit, this is actually really gonna happen, and
Right.
this record is gonna come out, and we owe it to our friends to do it. It's a service to the fans as well, that they deserve it as well. If this stuff went away and that was never heard, I mean, this stuff needs to be out there for the world. It's that big. The lyrics are that important, the music is that important. I believe in it as much as you guys do, and as much as Jason, Derek, Kelly, all of us, Pete, John, Eric, everybody involved that's ever been involved feels the same way, that this stuff is important, and it's gonna happen. I'm really excited about it.
Take a look, take another quick look. Satellites are moving on. Photographs of horses and camels in the sun. Once we sold them, then they're all gone. Now take a look, take another quick look. The satellites are moving on. Photographs of horses and
Yeah, so this release, I'm really proud of it. I really, tried to be true to Will and use snippets that either were like inside jokes, things that we
Sure.
discussed in time, in over time, little things, there's a lot of little hidden messages within it that will reveal itself over time, I think. I tried to make it dense enough that on repeated listens you'll find new stuff.
I don't even want you to reveal them. I
Well,
want them to remain a secret until they present themselves to my mind.
even if I explained it to you, I don't think it would make any sense to anybody.
It's really exciting
It
for
is.
me just because I don't think I'd pulled that 7 inch out in years, and then when this was told to us that this was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's so cool. And then when kind of Kelly had told us that you were kind of in charge of side two and trying to kind of make it a unique experience unto itself with going back to side one, that it is kind of more this pop, kind of more pop songs in a sense, like in Will's way. It was very exciting to me, to pull that 7 inch out and to revisit it, because it's not something I had gone back to a lot. And it's a really magical, just the 7 inch alone is really cool. But this whole other part of the story to be added to it is just really unique, because the songs on that nobody has heard yet are just like they're on par with the rest of Will's work. So everybody who is a fan of Circulatory, who is a fan of OTC, is really in for a treat with this.
Yeah, that 7 inch is one of like my favorite pieces in my collection to begin with. So to have it expanded upon, and have it expanded upon as well as you did it, like it's such a beautiful flow into the second half of it. You almost don't realize that this was added on.
And Rudy put it together as one MP3 for us to listen to. So I kind of loved that, because it did kind of, I've listened to it a lot this week, but I would do it while I was working and stuff. And so it just kind of like was there, and I wasn't like paying so much attention to song by song by song, which is how all of Will's stuff should be listened to.
Yeah. When I was picking out pieces and transition pieces, I tried to make it of that time, of that era of songs, and realizing that the Age of Mud sessions, whatever that was going to be, really fit in with the Grains and Sauces, Horses and Camels. There were a lot of like similarities between the original thing and the new thing, whether it was song titles or thematically. Me and Will used to talk a lot about with the mothers of invention, there was this conceptual continuity that Frank Zappa always talked about, where pieces could come up from vast time jumps and it didn't matter. It's all one piece of art. So I tried to really lean into that when I was compiling this, all the way down to the little tiny little snippets of transition pieces to make sure that it was of that era, kind of that time, and kind of like you said, it's a journey. Like it's not just some random B-sides, not some random songs. This is an art piece in the style of Will that I think honors him as best as I could, knowing him as good as I did. And also, I mean, knowing the material as well as, I've dove in deep. The 900 to 1,000 different songs, pieces of art for circulatory and Olivia stuff. I've listened to every single one of them. Well, I mean, just like any other Elephant Six fanatic, which I know you guys are, and maybe not so much Rudy, but he's getting there. It's like just gobbling this stuff up. There's so much good stuff, and it's like every time I listen to something, I'm like, that connects with this, so that means this. It's like a journey. It's like a giant puzzle.
People of the earth, can you hear me? Knocking around your sky. People of the earth, can you hear the roar? And know when it's loud and clear and it won't go away. So I say, don't lie about the way you feel inside. It's just a shell. It's covering you and me.
As I was digitizing this stuff, I knew at the time that it was important to conserve, to make sure that it was backed up on multiple drives, so I would never lose it and it would never go anywhere for the rest of time. I'm so glad that finally some of this stuff will be slowly trickled out.
And I do love the hearing it from you and Kelly, and even from, other people, Derek, like I love imagining, these CDRs with cat hair all over them and cat shit
Oh, yeah.
and just like randomly thrown around the room like a crumpled up piece of paper.
Just coasters for cocktails.
Yeah, it's like that someone came in and rescued this pile of beauty is really unique, and I just thank you for it. And I just it's just so fun to think about the artist kind of treating the art so like he loved it so much and was so passionate about doing it and so present while doing it, but that could just put it aside and just kind of let it erode, it is because he knew it could make more, or that it was constantly evolving. And I just love that just the story behind it, like,
Yeah.
They're mythical.
yeah, I just think it's so cool because, you think of these things like, I don't even know, like the movie Festival Express, or like that Summer of Soul movie, like those films were just in somebody's basement for so long, or like, it's just like rotting away in someone's garage, and that we get to experience these things years and years and years later. If there wasn't people like Ron, hey boys and girls, back up those hard drives, or don't throw away those CDRs quite yet.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a collector, hoarder of music. And not just a hoarder. I was collecting it to pass it on to other people. That was always been like my main thing. Going back to all these early Elephant Six sleepovers back in the 90s and 2000s is, okay, I've got these guys here. I could impart some of my obscure music onto them and hopefully it influences them in some positive way. And that goes back to literally the first time that I met Will and Bill. They played at Lounge Acts. and it was Olivia Tremor Control, Super Furry Animals, and Elf Power.
Was that on Black Foliage tour?
Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah, I was supposed to see him the night before or night after in Minneapolis.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, that makes sense. Gotcha. And me and my writing partner Bob did a radio show in Chicago for a long time, Bob and Ron's Record Club, and it's kind of an obscure late night theater of the mind radio show. And we played a lot of obscure psych pop, which is one of my main passions, obviously, because I love the Beatles so much, and psychedelic pop was kind of like my thing. One of the records that I was really into is this Chad and Jeremy of Cabbages and Kings, and they also made a record called The Ark. And there was just something about it. Me and Bob were for sure that this was the record that Will and Bill were listening to when they made this stuff. They had to be influenced by it. There was no way that could not be true. They'd never heard of it. I went up to Bill. I'm just like, I'm like, of course. Like I went into it being like, of course, of Cabbages and Kings, Chad and Jeremy, right? And they're just the look on his face. He was like, what? No, no. It was just like my heart just dropped. I was just like, wait a second. So everything that I thought, I'm like, okay. Anyways, so yeah, that was the first time I met Will and Bill, and it was over a thing that I thought in my head was their influence, and I was totally wrong. But that sparked a conversation that lasted all the way until now. That little meeting at Lounge Acts. And it's funny because like way after the fact, I think it was even like me and Bill on the roof of what is it, the Georgia Theater, where that last Olivia show was. After that show, me and Bill were on the roof having a drink or a smoke or something, and I brought that up. I'm like, do you remember me talking about of Cabbage? He's like, I love that record so much. He's like, did I get that from you?
It's so sad about the changing weather, but there's nothing we can do. It's so sad about the changing weather, but there's nothing we can do. Did you ever think of opening the sky up?
I love that though. And I think that the cool thing about that, Ron, and I'm just going to tell a quick story about Ron real quick, because the amount of, you're just the most beautiful music appreciator, and you want to bring people together with music. Just a quick story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story, but the first time I ever got to hang out with Ron, Joe, Terry, and I of the Poison Control Center were on tour of Casper and the Cookies, and we ended up back at Ron's house to stay. And of course, Ron has this amazing record collection, and we're like, and I don't know if people in other bands are like this, but our band, like we kind of like bickered about music. I can remember one time being sent to bed on New Year's Eve fighting with our drummer on which Jimi Hendrix record was better, right? Like we were getting adamant about, was Bold as Love better than Electric Ladyland type of thing. And I can remember Joe and I kind of started arguing about what Kinks record was better at Ron's. And Ron just goes in the calmest, most sweet way of these asshole guests that were at his house. He just goes, "Hey guys, it's like peanut butter and jelly. They're both good on their own, but together they're even better." And I'm just like, and me and Joe like look at each other and be like, "Oh my God, he's so right." And you know what? And since then, it's like I have made it a point that like music is not something that I need to argue with people about. I just want to share what I love and share in what they love. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like we don't even need to discuss. It's art. So it's like, comparing apples and oranges, peanut butter and jelly. It's like it's great by itself. It's great combined. It's just like all the work of Will. It's like, yeah, these little pieces are great by themselves. But then when you combine them or take it and make something new out of it. It's a whole new sandwich.
We're broadcasting signal. We're broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal.
Is actually capable of generating dimensions.
Broadcasting signal. We're broadcasting signal. We're broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal. Broadcasting signal.
Yeah, back in the mid '90s in Chicago, I was part of a collective called Crank Records, and then we had a magazine called Tailspins. It was a zine that we all wrote for, little articles and record reviews, and it was our excuse to get, passes to go to concerts for free, and to get free CDs and free records, free 7 inches. But I would do reviews of mostly psychedelic music. That was like my department. They would always give me the weirdest stuff possible because I was into like Your Flesh magazine and all these like, esoteric, weird music. I was really into Captain Beefheart when nobody else liked that stuff. And so they always gave me the weird stuff. And I'll never forget the day this guy, Brent Ritzel, who was the guy that ran the magazine, handed me a cassette that was handwritten that they got from Athens, Georgia. Dusk at Cubis Castle. It just said Dusk Side, Castle Side. It's like one of the maybe the first thing that they sent out. And I'll never forget popping that thing in my player and just jaw dropping. Stop the world. Everything's got to stop. Everyone has to listen to this.
Is it the same track list and everything? Is it the same?
Yeah, I've got it somewhere for sure. Oh, I don't throw anything out.
Oh,
Yeah, I still have that first Dusk cassette somewhere for sure. Yeah, I think because I showed it to Will at some because it was his handwriting. This was something I guess maybe they ran out of copies to send to zines, and so they were dubbing them themselves. And I remember distinctly getting that cassette, playing it for everybody that would listen. It was basically that record and then Ween the Pod. Those were the two things that I felt I discovered before anybody else and turned everybody onto. I got a cassette version of The Pod by Ween before the record came out, before it came out on Jimmy Disc. And I mean, those guys were, in their own right, also 4-track experimenters that kind of took the art form and elevated it in some weird way.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, and how many times can you pull somebody in and play them piss up a rope and just have their mind blown?
yes.
Yeah. I mean, just trying to get a person to get through side one of the pod, strap on that jammy pack.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? The Olivias were a slightly easier sell because of the fact that it was psych pop influence, very Beatles-ish. You know the rest. I mean, it's not as hard of a sell. And now if I would have started with the Black Swan Network, that might have been a whole different story.
Did you never think you'd wake up tomorrow to find all the things reflected in the way that we live? They're always there and hanging over your head. Your scenery changed. It's not the same. It's the origin that stays the same. They're always there.
Black Swan Network has always been for me kind of like this. It is like the more mythical side of Elephant Six to me. It's ever since the very beginning, I've been drawn to his Black Swan art piece, and just everything that touches on it has always just it's lit up my brain in a way that some things haven't. I just get real excited and I want to dig really deep into it because I know that Will's going to be on this album experimenting like no one has experimented before.
Well, yeah, I mean, going from, from the late music or from the B-sides to the late music, which was another kind of obscure release, a very small number, and then the colored squares, and then to this, there's not a lot of Black Swan Network, but the stuff that is out there is all varied and different, whether it's tape loop experiments to little song snippets. I think as a whole, the conceptual continuity from the beginning to the to this release, I think it all ties in and it sits really well.
I could agree with that.
Can I ask something? And maybe you're the only person in the world who would know it. And I think as a fan, other people would be interested in this. Now, when I got Dusk, it was shortly after it came out because I was lucky enough to go into Let It Be Records in Minneapolis at the right time, where it was like, a staff pick.
They basically put it in your hands.
Yeah. Said, this is a trip. You're going to love this. And yep, they were right. So I've been a firm believer in trusting record store clerks ever since. But the one thing that I kind of tried to ask Will on that last interview that we had with him, to see if and how much of this stuff ever got used. But do you know how much people had actually sent in dreams or dream sequences, or what was there a CDR of things that people had sent in? Did they ever use any of that stuff?
Is it compiled somewhere?
Yeah, I know that some of that stuff, apparently maybe shows up on Black Foliage, but is there, was that did people participate in the way that, maybe they were hoping for or dreaming of?
Yeah, I know they did receive a lot of cassettes. It's never been compiled. I do have fragments of it on various CDRs.
Well, that's project number 14 for you to get into, Rob.
I don't have the source material because I think a lot of these were cassettes.
Yeah.
And all the stuff I had either already been digitized or is from Will's 4-track to CDR, or from his digital 8-track to CDR, where he was just burning these things off. So yeah, I don't have a lot of that source material, but definitely people did send in dreams. It was used on Black Foliage. It was used on other stuff as well. And yeah, I have definite snippets of dream stuff. Most of it had already been altered by the time I got it. So I don't have the source material, but I'm sure it's there somewhere.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Because I've always thought it would be so fun to just see what they did with what, you know?
Yep.
And I don't know if how much, did the stuff end up at Will's house? Did the stuff end up at Bill's house? Did Eric have it? Because I know Eric was a very, very involved in manipulating things and working on those Olivia things, and John would be really great at that, so they all kind of had the ability to kind of take whatever was given to them and probably make it really cool.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the stuff that I found at Will's house was boxes and shoe boxes full of CDRs. I never saw cassettes. I never, I mean, sure, he showed me, boxes of 4-track cassettes that were in various states of labeled, unlabeled. And it's like, he knew what everything was, which was crazy. He could pop in a cassette and be like, okay, this is from this era, or this is from this, I guess unless you're the creator of that stuff, it's really hard to keep track of it.
Yeah, attach it to a place and time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like I could pop in an 8-track cassette because I did a lot of my recordings on 8-track, and I know when it's from, or what session, or from what song that snippet is from, and Will had that all up here.
It's gonna take a lot from you. Gonna be a big surprise in the night in the sky, and it feels alright, yeah. take a lot from me. Gonna make a big surprise.
Like I said, there were times I would like sit them down at my table. I'd just play song after song. What is this? Type in the title, move on, type in the title. What era is this? I tried to get as much information from Will while I had him here to label these archives, but we never, that was a never ending project. So now it's at a point where a lot of it is labeled and not dated, but era. So I know like which record it's before or post, you know.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to be inviting you back multiple times to discuss some of these other projects. I almost feel a little bit bad for you, Rudy, right now, because I don't think you realize what's going to happen to me and Patrick as soon as we start talking about Will. Like every episode of the show where we don't talk about Will is not going to be like an episode where we talk about Will because we get real excited.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really magical that we even get to do it, you know what I mean? And that there's all this new music coming out. I know we talk a lot about production and just of, you know, the faucet being turned on, you know, like with Derek right now. Derek's making a lot of music right now, and he's made a lot of music over the years, and just the amount of music he's gotten to be a part of. And, you know, like, you know, I think on one of the episodes we've already talked about is, you know, just the amount of work that is going into this timeless music, and that there's so much of it out there
Yes.
that is just so unexposed yet is really exciting. So I'm very happy that this story continues.
Well, thanks guys. Thanks for reaching out and having me on the show. I love that you guys are doing this. Spreading the word, the gospel of the amazing music that our friends made. Super important. It's a scene that was, thank God we were able to document a lot of it. There's a lot of video, there's a lot of audio. It's all out there between, you know, the movie kind of touched on the surface of what's there. I think it did a really good job. And I'm happy to play a tiny role in the scheme of things.
Yeah. No, the movie's fantastic. I definitely recommend everyone watch it.
And it's cool, like all the time. You know, there's new kids being turned on to this music. You know, I went to my son's summer camp 2 years ago, and I met a mom of a kid, and I was like, "Oh, he's playing guitar. Like, what kind of music is he into?" And she's like, "Well, he loves Neutral Milk Hotel." And I'm just like, you know, my eyes light up, you know. And he's like, whatever, a little 13-year-old kid, and you know, and I'm just like, oh, my heart just was like, yes.
You run back to your car and grab a CD copy of Dust to give to him.
Oh, well, yeah. So and it's just funny how people get into it. You know, like it's you know, and it's just fun to see young kids getting into things that I loved. And now that I have a child, you know, it's just fun to see what kind of flips his, you know. And my kids just like, can we stop listening to the Hard Quartet record, Dad? Can we just, you know, like those type of things. He's like, this one's a couple years old now, Dad. Like, we don't need.
All my son wants to listen to is K-pop Demon Hunters, so you got me beat at the moment.
Took a ride through the stormiest skies we'd ever seen. You came back again. You came back alive, and then you said you'd never return. Well, then again, here you are in front of us, saying that you'll never know. I think you know. We took a ride through the stormiest skies we'd ever seen.
I think it's a thing though that, like, you know, when these people die, of course there's a moment where these kids want to try to connect with it. So it's interesting time period, and I can only pull it back to, you know, Kurt Cobain or Elliott Smith from my generation. So when I talk to other parents about it, I just try to tell them that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That these kids are into this music. So, well, Ron, how should other people, you know, like tell them a little bit about how they can listen to music that you've made. You have your own podcast. Just tell listeners how they can dive more into you if you want to do that, or if you don't want to do that, that's fine too. But
I could do that. I could do that. I was the guitar player in a band called Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. We put out a bunch of records. I joined that band in 2009. Thank you so much. Made a record called Buzzard, a record called Rocket Domestic and Slingshot to Heaven. A bunch of live releases and archival releases have come out. Played with Richard Edwards on his 2 solo records, his first solo records. Lemon Cotton Candy Sunset and Verdugo. So yeah, if you want to check out my music, there's tons of Margot and the Nuclear So-and-So stuff out there. I also play with David Singer and the Sweet Science. It's more of a singer-songwriter psychedelic thing based in Chicago. Put out a bunch of records under that name. And then a more experimental band that I've been doing over my career is a thing called Golden Tones. Put out a couple records. Recently we put one out a couple years ago. That's out there. I do a podcast. I do a couple podcasts. One is called Bob and Ron's Record Club. You could find us on Patreon. A lot of discussion of record collecting and food and weird stuff and comedy. I do a more comedy-based podcast with my friends Dino Stamatopoulos. So I do a podcast with Dino Stamatopoulos. He is the head writer for Mr. Show and Conan O'Brien and Maura Laurel, Mary Shelley Frankenhole, Melissa Starburns. He is Starburns. So yeah, Dino's one of my closest friends, and it's me, my friend Bob, who I did the radio show with. And then Dana Snyder is the other person on my podcast. He's the voice of Master Shake. Yes, I do. And you can find that on Patreon as well. Dino and Dana's Safe Space, it's called. Also with our friends Lisa Correo and Matt. And, we have people like Scott Adsit and other friends that are part of that show. But yeah, that's a sporadic, maybe once a month podcast whenever we can all commit to it.
How did I not know that? I haven't done my homework. I feel very stupid.
Oh, if you're a comedy nerd, you would love our show. Yeah, so that's the music stuff. And of course, I'm going to be, involved with the Same Place, the new Olivia thing, and other archival releases that me and Kelly have been working on behind the scenes. And as soon as they get more focused, we'll let you guys know. As you guys will know probably first.
It must have been a nice surprise to see your great duty unfolding in time. What could it matter now? If this is the age of mud, everything matters now. See your great duty unfolding in time, 'cause they want things to be taller and faster.
It's soon. I think Mike is going to be announcing it very soon here. I saw some of the packaging, and it's a beautiful release. I'm really, really psyched.
awesome. That's so great. Well, I really appreciate seeing you, and thanks for talking with us and diving into this release that will be out on Happy Birthday to Me Records.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ron.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a part of it and keeping this music alive.
It must have been a nice surprise to see your great duty unfold.
Bother wearing seatbelts. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, Freed from Behind the Paywall. It's a discussion with Dressy Bessie about their 1999 release, Pink Hearts, Yellow Moons. Until then, don't forget about our $1 Patreon that makes you eligible for our many giveaways and helps us keep the proverbial lights on. And oh yeah, don't forget to do what brings you joy and fulfillment. And maybe listen to some great music too.
All of those people think progress is a word that means always grow. Everything matters now. This is the age of mind.